Hi everyone, it's Liz Danoon here again, and I just want to say happy Wednesday to you. So today I've got a new Facebook Live topic for you, and today I won't be stopping and starting the video like I did yesterday by accident. I'm in the flow now. So today's topic is 10 indicators that your child is struggling with reading. Now, this can be for younger readers, but it can also be for those big kids who are avoiding reading at all costs. These are indicators that they're actually struggling. And sometimes you think, oh, this child, they're misbehaving. This child's maybe got ADHD because they're so active. Why is this child not focusing on this book? Why aren't they attempting to read? So today is 10 indicators that your child or maybe your student is struggling with reading. Indicator number 1, it's a pretty easy one to spot, and that is they wriggle. They wriggle, they jiggle, they look away, they fiddle with a piece of their clothing, they try and turn the page of the book, they ask you a question, they do anything to avoid focusing on the text on the page. So wriggling is a pretty narrow term, but if you add all the aspects of what wriggling can be to it, it actually gets bigger and bigger. So wriggling is a pretty good indicator, and it's one that I saw in all 3 of my children when they started to learn to read. One to the point where they would not even sit next to me. They would literally walk off, walk back, get a toy, sit down, squirm, change direction, look over the back of the couch, all those things. So wriggling's a pretty big one. Another thing is, of course, refusing to look at the book at all. If you don't look at the book, then you can't be expected to start decoding the words on the page. Remember, the English language is actually a code. It's a code of 26 symbols, A up to Z, that can make 46 sounds in English language words. Hi there, Tui. Nice to see you. Lovely to have you here today. So, they refuse to look at the page. So we're talking about children who literally will look anywhere else. Their eyes will start, sometimes with some children, this is something that's really important to watch for too, their eyes will start darting all over the place. So they're trying to see the words on the page, but they sort of get this eye wobble and their eyes sort of start going in all different directions. Look for that too. There's another indicator right there in that eyes wobbling and eyes darting around, and I'll be telling you about that on another Facebook Live. Here is indicator number 3 that your child is struggling to learn to read or is struggling with reading in general, and that is they try to distract you. So they ask you something about sport, they ask you something about what you're wearing, they ask if maybe it's time to go somewhere, is it time to do something, they ask you if you want them to do a job for them, they ask you maybe what dad or mum is doing that afternoon, the doorbell rings and they race off to answer it. So they really do avoid looking at the book, and they will try and distract you. They are pretty good at distracting you. Let's face it, children are really good anyway, but when they're trying to learn to read and it's not something that's easy for them, they will distract you even more. So here's another indicator for number 4, your child is struggling with reading, and that is they will squint. Now, squinting is where you kind of close your eyes, and so let me get you an example of a book, okay? So they might hold the book far away. Let me hold it on this side, the light's better. They might hold the book far away, but they might hold the book closer. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, you've got this squinting going on. Look for their eyes. Look what their eyes are doing. They might be squinting. They might rub their eyes, which is actually indicator number 5 that they might be finding reading difficult. The thing about reading is that it can cause children quite a bit of stress. Now, it can be psychological stress if they're not finding it easy, but it can also be visual stress, and it can make their eyes get a bit teary and watery and irritated. So you might find they start rubbing their eyes. You know, I always say to people when they're teaching reading, whilst the child is looking at the book and trying to learn to read, you need to be looking at them, because they will give you the indicators of what is causing them the distress and the difficulty simply by the way in which they carry themselves physically as they're trying to attempt the task of reading. So study the child carefully. Another thing they'll do, and I've already talked about this is number 6, they will hold the book further away or closer to them. Hi Rebecca, lovely to see you. So we're talking about a child who will go like this, and then they'll go like this, and then they'll go like that, and then they'll go like this, and they're actually, it's multiple things going on there, but that's a really good indicator that they're struggling with it. They may ask to go to the bathroom. And I remember on yesterday's Facebook Live, I was telling you, I seriously saw a child who asked to go to the toilet within the time school began to lunchtime 27 times. Now, I thought about this after I spoke to you about it yesterday, and I thought, wow, that sounds really extreme. And then I thought, you know what? I remember that was a first year out teacher, and my daughter was in grade 1 at the time, and that teacher, she was frantic. So she had reading groups going on all around the room, of which I was in charge of one. She had other mothers in the room. She had children asking her questions. It was a pretty frantic environment, as it often is in a classroom of very young children. So when this little boy was like, can I please go to the toilet? Can I please go to the toilet? Can I please go to the toilet? She actually wasn't really paying attention, I don't think, to the number of times he was asking to go. And the thing about this little boy is he would go to the toilet and he would be back, I reckon, within maybe a minute. The toilet was really close to this classroom. And years later, I got to know this family really, really well. In fact, we became very close friends. And this little boy was diagnosed with dyslexia down the track. And his dad, who had since passed away, but he had also been dyslexic as well. So there was a family history there of that. So he's gone all the way through school and he's made it all the way through to year 12. But he was the little boy I remember who used to ask to go to the toilet all the time. And he was a gorgeous kid too. So another thing they'll do is they'll start looking at the pictures on the page and talking about them. So rather than focus on the text, because that's causing them the drama, they start focusing on all of the actual pictures and things around the edges. You know, they'll comment on the colours and the characters and the looks on their faces and what's going on and all the rest of it. So that's why they will actually start doing that too. So we've also got, they'll start saying the letter names. So this is number 9. They'll start saying the letter names, but they won't actually start saying the sounds, which is the decoding part. So they won't start saying, oh, you know, the, e, the, e. They'll start going T, H, E. And for cat, they'd go C, A, T. They won't say the, k, a, t. The child who's going the and then k, a, t, the child who's doing that level of decoding, they are already so far down the path of learning how to read. You can see how many skills are involved. They've got to identify the letter. They've got to add the sound to it. They've got to work out the blend, which is the TH, and that it says the. It's not a T and an H separately. So there's already all these skills that have already been learnt to actually even get to that point. So that's the child that's already reading. I'm talking about the child who's just looking at the letters and saying the letter names. That's a pretty good indicator that they can identify a letter, but they have no concept of what the sound code is that goes with those letters. That's a really important component. And here's a little tip for you. When you've got a young child who is learning phonemes. So phonemes are those tiny units of sound in every word. If you give them some Smarties, some blocks, some tiddlywinks, some little, you know, something to indicate a page, you can actually write some words down on a piece of paper and you can say to them how many sounds are actually in that word. And for example, cat, they would go k, a, t, and above the word cat, they would put 3 counters. So they can hear 3 phonemes. So for the word ship, for example, you've got the digraph, consonant digraph at the beginning. So again, there's only 3. So you go sh, I, p. And they actually start putting down little counters to show the phonemes in the words. That's a step. And it makes it fun because they can actually see a concrete visual cue. Tactile, they're touching it. Visual, they're seeing it. And they can actually start putting out the phonemes. So that's a great way of actually getting them over that step. Now, the other thing about the children who are struggling with reading, the thing that they will do is they will actually become really distressed. So they may initially start just by distracting you. They may initially start by wriggling. They may initially start by deflecting, by asking all sorts of questions. But invariably, when you keep saying to them, let's just focus on the book. What do you think that word might be? Let's have a look at this word. Let's break it down. And it doesn't matter how many times you say that. What can happen is that by the time you get to the end of the session, and let's say it's only 10 or 15 minutes long at max for a small child, they actually start to become really, really distressed. And that means that they might start to cry, they might start to become really upset, they might start to become angry, they might start to say they feel sick, all these sorts of things. So look, there's some pretty good indicators there that you've got a child who is struggling with learning how to read. And so tomorrow's Facebook Live, I'm actually going to be talking to you about what you can do about that. So what do you do about that child who's showing all those indicators of struggling to learn to read? So let's go through them quickly. 10 indicators that your child is struggling with learning to read. They wriggle. They refuse to look at the book. They try to distract you. They squint. They rub their eyes. They hold the book closer or further away. They may ask to leave the room or go to the toilet or the bathroom. They describe the pictures on the page instead of looking at the text. They say the letter names, but they're not actually sounding those letter names out. They're actually just saying A, B, C, as opposed to the actual sounds those letters would make if they were in words. And at the end, if things aren't going to plan and they're being put under pressure, they will become distressed. So I hope that helps you out there. I know there's lots of parents who will be joining us, and I know there's lots of teachers too, and the teachers might say, well, that's really common sense, but sometimes it just helps to remind you that not every child learns at the same pace. Not every child finds learning easy. In fact, about 1/3 of children in every class will actually find learning to read difficult, and there's a different spectrum of what difficult is. 2 to 3 of those children may end up being dyslexic. Some of them might just need a different way to learn, to actually get it. Different to the formal ways we teach in our classrooms. And teachers will start to need thinking outside the square to help those children. So I hope you have a super duper day. It is a beautiful day here in Melbourne, Australia today. And I am looking forward to hearing from you on my Facebook Live and hearing your comments as well. So have a great day, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.